Okay, folks, back at the pond, take two. I find myself babbling. It is that type of morning. But here I sit at the upper pond, and you will probably be able to see some of the fish food I sprinkled earlier. You may even see some tilapia, butterflies, dragonflies. I have no idea what you'll see in this video because at the moment I am leaning over my camera, trying to keep it out of direct sunlight so it doesn't mist up on me. We'll see how that works. The problem is I can't get a look at the screen, so I don't know what's going on. But I'll see when we go in. Now today started off beautifully. I went and got some green onions out of the garden. I cracked open a goose egg, mixed it together with the onions and some salt and some ground up pepper, put it in the wok, and we have just got a wok, strangely enough. I know we're living in Asia. We should have had one 20 years ago, and we did, actually, but we never used it. It's just, lately we've started using it again. I think that maybe because Myra took the cast iron frying pan, which did great work, but she's used it as a place to put her cell phone because it gets a better signal with metal plating behind it. So we ran out of frying pan that was any good. And we started to use the wok. That's how things work here. And now we are getting proficient. Well, barely. Because cooking with a wok is a very different type of cooking. It requires a whole different set of motor skills and coordination. And you get a whole bunch of different flavors out of it. If you want to see some of the masters at it, do a GoDuckGo search. That's in deference to no Google search, so they don't get tracked. On Korean, Japanese street food. And you'll see some of these masters using a wok, and it's just incredible what they do and how they do it. I don't think I will ever have that skill set. Not at my age, not with my hands, not a chance. That's the benefit of being old. But what I did today was so good, I said, gee, Myra, you've had your breakfast, right? And she said, oh yeah. I said, that's a pity. I walked over with the omelet, and she looked at it, and she smelled it, and she said, get me a spoon. So we shared the omelet and enjoyed a nice breakfast together, which is a good way to start a day, and it's even better when you think we've been married 30 years now? Known each other close to 35. And we still enjoy each other's company for breakfast. That's not a bad deal. Not at all. Yeah. How am I doing for... Oh, only 3 minutes. All right. There's your introduction, folks. And it's too nice a day to get too worked up about anything. And it was also, the news today was so depressing. In the Russian-Ukrainian war, we're not calling it a special military action. We're not calling it an invasion. We're calling it a war because it's gone on so long and now it's a meat grinder. And it's probably going to go on for quite a while yet. They are in the land of Kursk, K-U-R-S-K, which was the site of the largest, nastiest tank battle in World War II. And it was between the Russians and the Germans. But what you're looking at is the Great Plains of North America in that part of the world. It's flat, it's wide, it's long, and it's perfect ground for tanks. But in the cities, you're looking at Stalingrad, which was a terrible, bloody event in World War II. Hitler's desire to take Stalingrad may have cost him World War II because it cost him, at a real bad time in the war, over 600,000 men lost, killed, taken a prisoner. because he tried to take a city that didn't want to be taken, and it was a meat grinder. And that's what the Ukrainian-Russian war is turning into. And today it showed, well, war is always barbaric. The only thing, as somebody once said, that war is any good for is deciding who lives. It doesn't decide who wins, it doesn't decide who's right or wrong, it decides who lives. And if you're lucky, you live. If you're not, you die. And if enough people on your side are unlucky, the other side wins. But war is good for nothing. It just creates more war. And today, somebody went a long way to making the next war between Russia and the Ukraine. If anybody has been following the war, there have been some incredible Ukrainian fighting to hold off the Russian forces. They knew they couldn't win. Mariupol is the one I'm thinking about. I think I pronounced that right. They got into a steel-making plant that had bunkers built into it in case of World War III, and they got into the tunnels and the bunkers, and 1,000 fighters, give or take a number, men and women, held off the Russians for a long time and eventually surrendered. They got word from the president of the Ukraine, said, "Okay, guys, get yourself, surrender, we'll get you back from the Russians." Well, that didn't work out so well. On the news today, the Russians had set up a special prisoner of war camp for the people of Mariupol. And the rumor is, and with what else has gone on, it's a pretty good chance that the rumor is absolutely true, is that the people of Mariupol were victims of war crimes, torture, all sorts of nasty stuff by some very nasty characters wearing the Russian uniform. And the survivors of Mariupol would have had information about that. Very important information that would have got to war crimes when this whole thing is over. And the Russians didn't want that. And fair enough. Now what happened today, this morning, is that one side or the other decided to take out the POW camp. There are hundreds dead POWs and hundreds more seriously wounded. The Russians claim it was Ukrainians who wanted to cover up the atrocities that their men had committed. The Ukrainians claim it was the Russians, of course. I have no idea. Certainly, the Russians are capable of doing something like that. And as much as we like to think of the Ukrainians as the good guys, they're quite capable of doing it too. They've got a lot of unpleasant things on their plate that they've done in this war. Improvised explosive devices at the roadside, basically landmines that are hidden and are detonated from a particular vantage point or wait for somebody to step on them. And they have undoubtedly committed what some would call atrocities. As many as the Russians? I don't know, I don't care. Nobody comes out of a war clean. Consider for a moment the great allies in World War II who were fighting for your freedom, right, and liberty, and ta-da-da-da-da-da. General LeMay of the Air Force had decided that the B-29 Super Fortress was not fighting efficiently. It wasn't effective as the way they were using it as a high-altitude semi-precision bomber. Who can be precise bombing from 40,000 feet? Not many people. especially not if somebody's trying to shoot you down. So he went another way. He modified the B-29s. He loaded them up with incendiaries, the World War II equivalent of napalm, and sent them in low level. And he sent them in against Tokyo. Now, Tokyo had not been bombed during the war. It was in good shape, and it was a wooden city. Yes, it was constructed out of wood. Not concrete, not hollow block, not brick, not steel, but wood and paper. Think of all those terrible movies you've seen, even some early James Bond where they go into Asia and they've got all these sliding doors and wooden structures. Think The Last Samurai. Many of you will have seen that one. It was a box office hit. And that was Tokyo. And they sent in a whole bunch of B-29s loaded up with basic napalm, in a solid form, mind you. And they bombed that city. And that night, in one night, they killed 80,000 Japanese civilians in a town that had no industry, no great military bases or anything else. It was just handy and easy to bomb. Now, that makes it the single most destructive night of bombing in World War II. Everybody goes, oh, the atom bomb was so terrible to drop. Well, folks, Tokyo had more casualties. The difference is, of course, the atomic bomb was dropped by one bomber. Somehow that makes it more horrific than getting wiped out by 100 bombers. I don't see that the Japanese people would see the difference. I don't think any victim would see the difference. I don't think I see the difference. But that's the atrocity. That's the type of war crime that the Allies were going through and doing. And there are many more instances of what would be war criminals and war crimes and convictions and executions, but the Allies won the war. So it was the Germans that got accused of war crimes, tried and hung. I'm not saying they shouldn't have been, folks. I'm not a neo-Nazi. I'm not a Nazi sympathizer. I'm not a fascist sympathizer. I can't even say that word. But it's a fact that, oh, there's a beautiful tilapia. I hope it goes into the video, but I don't think it will. It's almost a foot long. The winning side gets to decide who the war criminals are. If Russia wins this Ukrainian war, then the Ukrainians are going to be Nazis and war criminals. That's the way it's going to come down. If the Ukrainians win it, then the mighty allies who back them and the Ukrainians will get the Russians for war crimes. At least they'll hold show trials even if they can't get hold of the people. That's how that's going to come down. Either way, it doesn't make a hill of beans of difference to the people that were tortured, mutilated, and killed. They don't care who did it. They just care that it was done. And I don't suppose it really does make a difference which side killed which prisoner. Both sides are doing it. Isn't that a depressing thought for a Saturday morning? Sorry about that. But, as my lady said, humanity may have reached a new low with this one. And, probably they have. But the good thing is, there seems to be no basement floor. We can just keep getting more and more gross, and more violent, and more disgusting. God made the mountains, God made the skies, God made the people, God knows why. He fixed up the planet as best as he could, then in come the people and mess it up good. They civilize left, they civilize right, till nothing is left civilized and nothing is left and nothing is right. That's a little bit out of a song from Paint Your Wagon. Lee Marvin sings it. He doesn't like civilization. Neither do I, actually. That's why I live sort of in semi-solitude. And I was a lighthouse keeper and all sorts of other things that kept me away from people as much as was possible at the time. But humanity does seem to screw things up royally. Don't know why, we just do. It's in our nature, maybe. Do we have original sin within us? Not the way the Catholics put it out, or other Christians for that matter. I don't think it was woman that brought sin into the world. I don't think it was man befuddled by woman who allowed sin to happen. I don't see it being put into our blood and carried through the woman into today, which is how that little bit of theology works out, folks. Woman, that's why it's crucial. Is that why? No, that's not the reason. But yeah, none of this woman created sin and passes it along. Although I do believe that as much as all of our physical ancestry is carried within each and every one of us, our very cells and our makeup at the lowest level is a direct line from the first, well, go creationism if you want, from Adam and Eve till now. There is a continuous line of genetics passing through us. If you're not into Adam and Eve, it's in a continuous line from the very first animals until we evolved from them into what we are. We are just a genetic byproduct of that, a genetic product, let alone byproduct. We are our history. I believe in the same way we are the spiritual descendants of those who came before us. They have passed on their thoughts, their beliefs, their emotions to us. We have spiritual ancestors, we have physical. And every now and again, most humans, up to and including the Dalai Lama, have to remind themselves to follow the good ones and ignore the bad ones. In an interview I watched with the Dalai Lama when he was, in his 60s maybe, and they were talking about resisting this and that and how you get to be this and that and what have you as an enlightened human. And he said, well, I'm not really enlightened. There are times that I walk past a pretty woman and I notice that I'm walking past a pretty woman. And I have to go back to doing a little meditation very quickly. That's the way we are. Nothing wrong with noticing a pretty woman. What's wrong is when you let that noticing become something it shouldn't be. And we do that way too often. It's easier to be lax on our morals. Now, I'll put this to both sides of the equation, and then I'm going to have to cut this off because it's at 18 minutes. But it is as hard to be a full patch outlaw, motorcycle biker type thing, full patch Hell's Angel. And they say, oh, he's just a normal type guy. No, he's not. He's a full patch Hell's Angel. This gives him a whole different line of reasoning and thinking and stuff than your regular person has. That's why they're full patch. And you get the same thing if you want to become a saint in Christianity or enlightened in Buddhism. You got to go hardcore and you got to go semi-fanatical and believe it's right and have loyalty and all of these incredibly hard things. It's not easy belonging to a group and becoming a part of the elite of any group. It's a lot easier just to sort of shuffle on down the road, baby, and take it as it comes. That's why there's so few really good. But just shuffling off down the road usually ends up in mediocre bad stuff, so there's a lot more bad than good. Because you can't shuffle down the road and be good. It takes work. It really does. So does a marriage. So does love. So does friendship. All the good things in life. And I'll define the good things in life that are that show justice, mercy, and humility. And you work that into your life, you're doing good. But that takes work. And not many of us are willing to do enough of it. I include myself there, folks. Don't get me wrong. But at 20 minutes, I got to shut this off, and maybe I'll be more upscale tomorrow. We'll see if God willing or the God's willing. I will talk with you tomorrow. Bye-bye for now. Take care.